Drilling or sawing outside. Hopefully it's not too loud. There's not much I can do about it, so hopefully they will stop doing that in a moment. And oops, daisy. Just going live on TikTok now. Okay. And there we go. We are live. It is the 1st of August, and where is the year going? It is very, very rapidly disappearing and getting away from us. So I don't know about you, but I feel like I have so much more that I need to do before the year is done. And everything is getting faster, or maybe I'm just getting older, one of the two. So where are we today? It is Friday, the 1st of August. We have more AI news because of course we do. We have AI news every single day. So I'm here every morning, every weekday morning at 10 a.m. to basically go through the latest news of the day to help you divide noise from the actual signal and to give my opinions on what I think is going on, because frankly, it's overwhelming. There's just so much happening in the world of AI that I'm hoping that these shows and these videos can help to cut through some of that and help us focus on what actually matters and what doesn't. As always, I'm going to be taking questions live from the audience. So I'm going to be alternating between showing you some news that I think is newsworthy and answering questions from the audience. And then we'll go back and forward, back and forward. And it's different every day. Sometimes I just end up answering lots of questions, and sometimes we just talk about the news. But let's jump straight into it. So there's a few. This first one's a bit amorphous, but basically I wanted to talk about open source models. So you've probably heard open source, closed source, and maybe you know what that is. Maybe that hasn't really been something that's been on your radar. Most models that we use, or the majority of people use on a daily basis, are closed source. So something like ChatGPT, Anthropic, Grok, Microsoft's Copilot, Gemini, etc. They are primarily closed. What this means is we in the public do not have the ability to download that model, including its weights and how it's been built. We do not have the ability to get that model ourselves, install it on our own computer or on a server, and then work with it offline. An open source model, on the other hand, is a model where the publisher, the creator, has decided, no, we're going to give people the ability to build upon our model. We're going to give them our model as a foundation. We're going to give them the weights. So we're going to give them the actual information that makes up this model. And then they can go off and they can use it and they can build their own products. They can build their own platforms off the back of this. So generally, when a model is deployed inside of a business, it tends to be an open source model which has been taken. Something like Llama from Meta, for example, will be taken into the business, installed on a server inside the business, or maybe a server in the cloud, and then it is used, we call it locally. Even if it's not physically in the room with you, it's a local large language model, which allows us to access artificial intelligence without having to use a service like OpenAI, ChatGPT, Anthropic, or Grok. So the open source movement is, well, it goes beyond artificial intelligence. This has always been a thing in software development. Not always. So for a long time, this has been a thing in software development where we've had closed models and we've had open source software. Closed software tends to be stuff that is created for profit. So the majority of software out there is closed. They do not reveal their code. They do not reveal how they built what it is they sell to you, but instead they just sell it to you. So when you buy something like Photoshop, for example, they're not giving you the code for Photoshop so that you can adjust it to your own needs. Instead, they're giving you a piece of software that you pay for. The open source movement, though, I don't know when it started. It's probably been around for a long time. I don't know the full history of it, but open source specifically is software that the people have created, software developers have created, and they'd said, okay, I want other people to be able to build upon this. I want you to be able to build your own software, to grow the community, and we're going to do this together. It's a very different way of approaching software development. It's a very different way of approaching business as well, because you're not necessarily selling anything, you're just giving it away. There are other ways to monetize it, but generally you're just giving it away. And what we're seeing in the world of artificial intelligence, and if you're on one of my streams, what you're seeing on the screen behind me is the difference between how the Chinese and the Western, primarily American labs are dealing with open source versus closed source. So the best open source models, the models that are made freely available to use for people to build with, are all Chinese. They're all coming from Chinese labs. So I've got a league table here of all of the different open source models. The top one is Qwen 3, which is created by Alibaba. The second is DeepSeek, DeepSeek R1, which you probably know. That's the famous one, which is created by DeepSeek, which is Hangzhou based. The third one is GLM 4.5, which is created by the company's called Z.ia. I don't know how you pronounce it, Zai, or probably just Z.ia. That's the one that just came out. This is a GLM 4.5. Then we have EXA-1 by LG. So that's going to be a Korean one. So not that one. Then we have an NVIDIA model. Then we have Minimax. So Minimax M1. 80K. Again, Minimax is a Chinese company. And then it goes on. We have Alibaba, we have Zed, we have Moonshot AI. Oh, that's Kimi. Yep, that's Chinese as well. Alibaba. Then we have Mistral, French, Alibaba, DeepSeek, NVIDIA, blah, blah, blah. And then all the way down at number 10, 15, we have Meta's model. So Meta's Llama 4 Maverick. So Meta, the owners of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, Mark Zuckerberg, basically, they have always been the champion of open source models here in the West. So the UK, Europe, and America primarily. They've always been the ones who are saying, oh no, this should be open. We should make sure everyone can build on this. That was primarily, it seems, a marketing move against OpenAI, because OpenAI famously are not open. ChatGPT is not an open model. It's not an open source model. So their name is like, that's not sure about that, Sam. It's a bit of an awkward name because I think they probably started with the intentions to be open source and for the good of humanity. And then they realized, oh, no, wait, hang on, we can become potentially the largest company on earth. Screw that. Let's make some money. So the ChatGPT models are not open. Meta's models, Llama 3, Llama 4, etc., have been, up until now, primarily open source. So they make their models open for people to build with. They had an earnings call, Meta had an earnings call 2 days ago, and Mark Zuckerberg has been doing the rounds talking about his new superintelligence lab, and he has changed his tune. So he has started to talk about the fact that these models are getting so good nowadays that maybe we shouldn't make them open source. Maybe we shouldn't just release them out to the public because it's dangerous. Instead, we should keep them, inside Meta where it's nice and safe and we can look after the future of artificial intelligence. So it seems like Mark Zuckerberg is going in a similar route where for a while he used open source versus closed source to jab at OpenAI. Elon Musk did this as well with XAI. It was a way to kind of, I imagine, annoy Sam Altman, but also to devalue OpenAI in the eyes of the software development community, in the eyes of the public as well. It's a way to say, well, ChatGPT's, they're all for profit. They're not for the people, but we're making open source models. That was what Mark Zuckerberg's been saying for years, and they have been releasing the Llama models. As you can see from this league table, though, the Chinese make much better open source models, much better. Llama is sitting here at number 10, 15 in the league table, and everything above it is all Chinese models, apart from that one Korean model and one Mistral French model. It looks like Mark Zuckerberg he's dropping the mask. He's not even bothering to pretend to be the good guy anymore, and he's preparing the way to drop their open source commitments. So he's already started to say in these super intelligence announcements, these are too powerful. There's no way we should allow these to be open source because people are going to be able to do dangerous things for it. So we're going to potentially keep it closed. It's just the first thing he said. That's the first announcement, but I'm sure that this is leading the way for them to lock down all of their models. What this means is that the open source community, the open source movement goes entirely to China. So previously Meta, people were building open source models, and they were using Meta because Meta and their Llama model was more trusted than the Chinese models in the West. I'm talking about in America. There's always been this distrust of using a Chinese model because of potential intelligence risks, let's put it that way. that is no longer an option. If you want to develop and deploy a local large language model, a local AI based on open source, it's going to have to be a Chinese model unless somebody steps up and provides a new model. But as we've seen, that is really hard to do. There are very few companies, organizations that are large enough to build these models because it now costs billions to train a model. So the open source community has been ceded entirely to China. So you might be wondering, like, well, why? Why are the Chinese giving away their models free? What's the play here? So I found, I mean, I have my own opinions on this, but I found a really good article that I think you should all go and have a look at, which is on Medium, and it's from the Data Science Collective, and it's called "Why Chinese Companies Are Open Sourcing Their LLMs and What It Means." So pretty direct. This is from March 2025, and it's by Shaylee Dash, who is a AI researcher, writer, and teacher, passionate about making AI accessible to everyone. So go and follow her. Go and check out her article. But I just wanted to give a quick rundown. So this article also runs through what is open source and what are the main Chinese players. So we have DeepSeek, we have Qwen, we have Hunyuan. I don't know what the tones are on these, and we have Baichuan. I do speak Chinese, so I should probably actually find out how to say these properly. And the author, Shaylee, has gone into some details about why she thinks they're going open source. So there's a couple of things here. First one here is global brand building and soft power. So if you've been paying attention to the news, you know that China isn't building an empire through force. That's a very old-fashioned way to exert control. Instead, they use soft power. So they're over in places in Africa, building roads, building schools, and at the same time getting access to mining rights. It's kind of the deal that they cut. They're building the new Silk Road, Belt and I've totally forgotten the name of it. Belt and Road. Okay, that's a terrible name. Belt and Road Initiative. So they started in 2013. They're investing in more than 150 countries, and they're basically rebuilding the Silk Road and connecting up through Central Asia to Europe. They're doing all of these things in the background, very cleverly, spending a huge amount of money and building ties with countries that the West has either ignored or been actively terrible to over the last couple of 100 years. So China were moving in saying, hey, we're going to build your infrastructure, we're going to build your schools, we're going to build you train networks, etc., etc. Very smart, very, very smart. So this could be an extension of that soft power where they're saying, hey, AI is the future. And the Chinese government has said this. I'll talk about that in a moment. They're saying AI is the future. We need to make sure everyone has access to this. So we are putting our open source models out there. We are not like those companies in America who are profit first, who are driven by, megalomaniacal billionaires. But instead, we want to make sure everyone has access to these models. Smart move. So in this article, it says this plays well internationally, especially amongst developers in Asia, Africa, and Latin America who seek alternatives to the US and other Western platforms. This is China's soft power at work, not via ideology, but through open code. 100%. I mean, it's a smart play. The next one is data and ecosystem feedback. So by open sourcing your models, you get more users using your model, funnily enough, because it's free. That allows you to get more feedback from those developers. This doesn't mean that you are like tapped into their code. You can't see what they're doing on their local servers. But when people develop with your model, they're going to be coming back and forward between you and, they're going to be coming back to you saying, I think the model could be made better if we do this, and how can we work out these rough edges, etc. By having this ecosystem of people who are developing with your open source software, it becomes a conversation which allows you to make your software better. Whereas when you do it closed source, you build everything in secret and then you release it. So GPT-5, for example, which should be out in the next couple of weeks, is built in private, in stealth mode, in Skunkworks. It's like hidden, locked down, nobody's allowed to see it, and then you release it out into the wild. With open source, you can release it and then you have a two-way conversation with the people who are developing using your open source, and that allows you to do it better. So this is one of the reasons why open source as a whole is useful in software, and this fully extends to these large language models. Third one, developer lock-in and platform play. So this is basically making your model available so that it becomes the standard. So in the same way that Android has become the standard for non-iOS mobile systems, that was a Google play. So Google created the Android operating system and got it out there into the world. Did they make much money from Android itself? No. But that allows them to do things like install Chrome as a default browser. It comes as a default browser in Android. It allows them to have access to the telemetric data, etc. It's by putting your platform out there, other people are going to build on it, other people are going to use it to create, and that allows you to unlock a huge amount of value. So you put out your platform for free, and then you can build businesses off the back of it. So Google did it with Android, and the Chinese will do it with their large language models, make them become a global standard for developing with, and then there are other ways to monetize further down the line. So if people are building apps with Qwen or DeepSeek and creating agents and plugins optimized for the AIs, relying on the inference endpoints, then it becomes easier to monetize premium services, enterprise support, which is what ChatGPT are doing, funnily enough, and cloud integrations later. So a lot of these companies like Tencent and Alibaba run cloud companies as well, in the same way that Amazon, AWS, is one of the largest cloud providers. There are versions in China who will become the default. If you are building using Alibaba's models, then you're probably want to gonna easily host on Alibaba's cloud servers as well. So it just kind of makes sense to put it out there for free, bring in more customers. So here's the question. It's like, well, where's the money coming from? So this is the same in the West. A lot of stuff is given away for free, and it is backed by VCs. The big difference in China is that a lot of the large tech companies have a stake in them, which is from the government. So the government will own a portion of each of the big companies. So Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, I'm trying to think of the other ones. They're probably the big three software companies. The government has an ownership stake in there, so they are more able or more willing to also pump money into it as well. And there's also just a huge amount of money in the ecosystem as a whole. The same in the West, in Silicon Valley, a lot of money has been thrown at AI. In China, though, so when did we have it? So last week, Trump put out his AI action plan. So he finally said, yes, we're fully behind artificial intelligence. This is where we want to go. In the UK, what's it? They just put out a regulation plan. I've forgotten the name of it, but some kind of alignment plan. So in the UK and the EU, we're putting out a proclamation saying we need to regulate this. We need this to slow down. It's fine. It's a decision they've made. In America, Trump has just put out his plan saying we need to go. We need to deregulate. We need to win this race. That was last week. So 2025 July. So since 2021. So what's this? 4 years ago, China has explicitly named AI and foundation models as a national strategic priority. So 4 years ago, they were like, yep, we need to do this. We need to get on this. This is important. And Trump has only just done this last week. So the priority was on developing a safe, controllable AI and reducing dependence on foreign models like ChatGPT. So yeah, they have been on it for years. It's been a priority coming from the top in China for years already. Also, so I was in China, would have been about 3 months ago. And the one thing I noticed was the immense amount of pride that people had in their artificial intelligence companies. People would actually talk to me about AI and about DeepSeek in particular, without me telling them that I had anything to do with AI. So I was sitting on the plane and flying into Beijing, and I was sitting next to a woman who was from Hangzhou, and we started chatting in my bad Chinese. And she introduced herself and said, "Oh, I'm from Hangzhou. Have you been there? Da, 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 da. It's the city where DeepSeek is from." It's like, oh, okay, that's a weird way to to describe it, but yeah, there's just such a pride in what they're doing in AI, which we do not see in the West. Maybe in Silicon Valley, but outside of that, it's treated with a lot more fear instead. Whereas in China, people are on it. So yeah. This article concludes Chinese models are open but not altruistic. So it is not, open source is generally not purely out of the goodness of people's hearts. It's not because these companies want to make the world a better place. Sure, maybe they will. Fantastic, great. But it's generally also a calculated strategic move as well, where you're going to own the stack, you're going to build global influence, you're going to lock in developers. You'll be able to learn by deploying your model into the field from real world usage. And then later down the line, you can start to monetize it because you have that lock-in, you have that platform control, you have a lot of people using your models. So I think there's a whole bunch of things at play here. But by Meta stepping back from their open source commitment, basically China has been given the mandate. I'm not going to say the mandate of heaven. We need a new version of the mandate of heaven for the mandate of AI has been given to China to basically run the open source movement because the West and America has stepped out of it entirely, which is, I think, important. We talk every day about lots of little things that are going on in artificial intelligence, like, oh, there's a new model, there's a new, video tool, there's a new whatever. That stuff's kind of noise. This is much, much more important. This is basically the West ceding control of open source and saying to China, go for it, go nuts. And I think China will fully take advantage of this and make sure that we know in the West that these companies have gone profit first rather than people first. So this is a huge ideological win for the Chinese large language models, and they are going to continue to make absolutely amazing open source models. And they're the only game in town if you want to deploy a local large language model. So I think this is one of those big shifts that at the time might not seem important, but when we look back in 6 months, we'll be like, oh yeah, I see what happened here. So that's why I wanted to cover it in some detail. I'm going to hop over to questions now. I was about to touch my screen. Oh, why am I in a circle? That's not right. There we go. Hop over to some questions. So I just need to scroll through. Oh, wow, I have several thousand likes, which I need to scroll through. Thank you, though, for them. I wish you guys could see the interface I see on TikTok. It's a lot. It's a complete mess. It's trying to get me to join some kind of football competition, flash goal. I need to become an ace keeper. Like, there's just a lot going on the screen. Nat says, are you real? I doubt it. Again, if I could produce an AI avatar that was this sloppy and authentic, I probably would. But the problem is with the AI avatars is they're too polished at the moment. Yeah, so yes, I am real, and I am doing it live. That's why I'm doing these lives, because it's very easy to do produced videos which look extremely authentic using artificial intelligence. Doing lives is a level of human connection, a level of I'm not going to say effort, but it's a level of intimacy that doesn't really come across when you have artificial intelligence. Not yet. So we don't have models that can be as, I'm saying this in a good way, as sloppy as me, as human as me on camera live like this. So you get all of the ums, you get all of the ers, you get me making mistakes on the computer. I nearly touched my main monitor because I needed to change something, forgetting that only my phone is touchscreen. You get my weird mouth noises, you get the drill outside, you get all of these things that you don't get with artificial intelligence, and that does lead to an actual connection. So yes, I am real for now. Maybe if there is well, actually no, I'm fine doing lives like this. I'm fine doing my videos myself and speaking on stage, giving workshops, because I think that's going to be more valuable moving forward as we move away. I've talked about that at extent before. Daniel says, Kyle, we're here for the board games. Tell me more, bro. You can't actually see the board game. The main board games are here. Yeah, primarily here. So I run a board game meetup in London because I am that cool. I've got like 2,000 members. It's on Meetup. They don't all come at the same time. Thank God. That'd be terrible. The most we ever had was, I think, we had 200 around a charity event where we raised money for charity. People came along, played board games, and donated. And we did that one for Mind, the mental health charity. And I think we raised about £3,000 that day, which was amazing because everyone chipped in a tenner, 15 quid, and we made a lot of money. So generally, I do have a board game meetup, and I have a lot of board games here, but not 200 people at a time, because that would be absolutely terrible. Do you think companies CISO will pass China open source? Remind me of what CISO is. Oh, Chief Information Security Officer. No, no, they will not. So this is the main problem with the Chinese models right now, is there is a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment, especially in America. A lot of fear, a lot of racism, basically. And these models get wrapped up in that, unfortunately. However, that said, and this is not me putting my tinfoil hat on, again, I've lived in China. I speak Chinese. I'm technically 2.4% Chinese. My great grandfather was John Ho Chi. So he was Chinese. So technically, I'm a tiny bit Chinese, which I make sure to tell everyone using my Mandarin any chance I get. So the Chinese intelligence service is very powerful. So all these things about, putting micro receivers in antennas and stuff like Huawei, there's always going to be a grain of truth. It's going to be overblown by the fear and racism, but yeah, there's definitely shenanigans going on as well. So there are going to be good and there's going to be bad reasons for not using these models. The thing is about open source models, and when you deploy them locally, you can set them up so there's no connection back to the original company. That's why we do them locally, so we can run it privately, so that we can run it without connection to OpenAI, for example. This is why a lot of people are deploying local models, say in legal firms, because they don't want information going back to OpenAI. So with a local model, it shouldn't really matter. You download the model, you download the weights, and you deploy it on your own server, and you're not sending that information back to the parent company. So it doesn't matter. However, I don't think most companies will even consider it. They'll just hear, oh, China, and be like, no, we're not going to use that. We'll lose all our secrets and all of our data, which is probably overblown, but at the same time, there will be some shenanigans. And again, I'm not saying this as an anti-Chinese conspiracy theorist. I love China. I was just there on holiday. I used to live in Beijing for a couple of years. So I'm about as neutral as they come on these kind of things. So there are good things and there are bad things on both sides. And there will be intelligent shenanigans, absolutely. But at the same time, these are really good models and you can deploy them locally. Okay. But yeah, in answer to your question, no, they're not going to pass them because they're Chinese primarily. And people trust companies like Meta more than they do the Chinese government, which I think is not an obvious choice, but people they'll go with the enemy they know. Sorry, just scrolling around. We will switch back to print media in order to know what's real. I don't think so. I was actually going to buy the Economist yesterday. So there's a special issue of the Economist. I think it's a summer issue. It must be, but on the front it said the economies of superintelligence. I was like, oh wow, yeah, that sounds really valuable for me. I'm going to learn about the economies of artificial intelligence and artificial superintelligence in particular. That copy of the Economist was £10.99. That's about $15 roughly for a magazine. Not even a magazine. It's cheap paper. But £10.99 for a print publication, and I mean, I've got the money, I guess, but that was just like, what are you talking about? That is a mad amount of money. So I'm actually probably going to go to the local library and read it just because I want to read that one article. I think print media has a place. It is an increasingly small place. Also, you're saying that journals are proof checking content. Yes, but that is decreasing. So a huge number of news and media outlets, again, I don't want to sound like conspiracy theorists, but the economics of it are, a lot of their money comes from their websites now, and a lot of that comes from clicks, and it comes from sensational rather than truly investigative journalism. So the things that actually get clicked on and therefore they can serve adverts up on are going to be not necessarily the most detailed journalistic investigations, but they are going to be things that are more sensational. because that is unfortunately what the general public wants. So a lot of news organizations have investigative journalism components. That is a very small, important, but very small component of what they actually do. They are media companies. They are in the business of selling advertising. That's always what they've been. Adverts have been the mainstay of their revenue streams rather than subscriptions and rather than purchases. But that has become even more pronounced in the last 20 years since the internet has come around. It's about advertising. It's about media sales. So I think it's going to be tricky to come back from that. I agree. We need journalism. So we need critical thinking. We need appraisals of, what's true and what's not. And journalists can provide that. I just don't think that humanity as a whole will be going back to print media. I think that ship has sailed, unfortunately. There's just too much information. The economics aren't going to work, especially printing paper and then selling it for £10.99, which is psychotic. So I think we're going to stay online, but we are going to need new systems for verifying what is true, because, for hundreds of years now, anyone could fake a document text. For 100 years, maybe less, people could fake photos. They've been faking them for a long time, but very efficiently for the last, 30 years or so. And now we can fake video. And we can also fake live calls. Again, I am real, although I would say that as an avatar, I'm sure. We can no longer trust what we see. So there is going to be a need for some kind of verification process. I don't know what that's going to be, but there will be something. I don't think it's going to be print media, though. Cool. So that's actually a lovely segue. So going into the next story, which is about print media. Where is it? This one. Let's put it up on screen. So this is an article in the Wall Street Journal, so a print media, website now, talking about Amazon. Amazon are going to pay the New York Times $20 million a year in their AI deal. So this is an interesting one because not Amazon, the New York Times are currently suing OpenAI, but Amazon have cut a deal with them. And I think this is the first company to secure a deal with the New York Times. The New York Times has been a holdout in terms of AI training because they've been extremely against it for good reasons. This is an existential threat to journalists. But this is the first deal that has been cut with them. So what this means is Amazon are going to use the New York Times content to train artificial intelligences. Specifically, this will probably be for Claude. So Amazon own a large stake in Anthropic. Anthropic create Claude. They'll also be using this for their Alexa as well. Now, Alexa is AI. It's just it's natural language processing AI rather than generative AI. It's a different form of AI, but they're starting to bring them together. All they need to do is basically shunt Claude into the Alexa and call it a day, but for some reason they haven't done that yet. I'm sure they're working on it. So Amazon's deal to license a broad range of New York Times content comes with a meaty payday for the publisher, $20 million to $25 million a year. Now, the revenues of the New York Times, I think, are $2 billion a year. Let's check. New York Times revenue. Okay, $2.5 billion a year revenue with an operating income of $335 million. Yikes. Okay, so they have a 10%, slightly more than 10% margin. What's that, 15% margin? I'm not going to do the maths here. So they have huge costs. So I imagine this extra 20 to 25 million a year is pretty nice because there's going to be no additional cost to that. So that's a chunky addition to their operating income. Yeah, because there'll be no cost. That'll be pretty much pure profit for that deal. So the financial terms for the multi-year deal offer a window into how publishers and artificial intelligence companies are valuing news content in the midst of a seismic change in how consumers seek information online. That is a understatement. Oh, here we go. The annual payments amounts to nearly 1% of the Times total 2024 revenue. Yeah, 1% of their revenue, but I think a higher percentage of their profits, because this is pure profit, whereas the rest of their revenue, it looks like, is at a low margin, that kind of 15% margin. Sorry, I say that's low. That's not low for traditional businesses. It's just I'm used to online businesses and we have 80, 90% margin. So it is, yeah, the first AI related licensing deal, packed, they've used the word here, for the Times and Amazon's first such agreement with a publisher. Okay, awesome. So I know that so Amazon actually own the Washington Post as well. Is this, wait, is this, no, this is the Wall Street Journal. They own the Washington Post. So already they're using the Washington Post data. Now they've got the New York Times. So what happened initially when these models were created was OpenAI and I mean all the companies, maybe not Anthropic, but OpenAI for sure with ChatGPT, they just scraped all of this information. So scraping is you build a piece of software, a really basic piece of software that goes to websites, downloads that information. Very, very basic stuff, very crude. You need to set kind of timers and things like that, and simulated moving around the screen, etc., to trick the security program so they think it's a real human being. But the basic idea is just brute forcing the internet. You go and visit all the websites, you go and scrape every single website, a web page on the New York Times. You go and do it for the Washington Post, you do it for the Times. You just go and get all that information, you dump it into a database, and you're going to be using that in your training. So the first time ChatGPT, etc., did their training of 3.5 and 3, and I'm sure 4, they just brute forced it and they grabbed all of this information without permission, including YouTube. Hence that great Mira Marathi meme where Mira Marathi, who was the CTO of OpenAI, she was asked, "Did you scrape YouTube?" And she doesn't want to lie, but she doesn't want to admit it. So she just pulls a face like, like, oh shit. That was their only reaction, which tells you, yeah, they 100% scraped YouTube. So what's happening now is all of these publishers, companies like the New York Times, like the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, etc., are coming for the AI companies saying, hey, you scraped our content. We are really annoyed with that. So if you want to be generous, they're doing this because they want to protect the integrity of their information. They want to protect the integrity of journalism, and they think it's unfair, and they're protecting their intellectual property. Fine. If you want to be a bit more cynical, they're looking for a payday, and that is basically what is happening. Deals are being cut with each of these publishers, including places like Reddit. So Reddit was scraped en masse, and then Reddit cut deals with all of the AI companies. So what the AI companies are doing is basically they're not asking for permission, they're begging for forgiveness and then handing over millions of dollars. So they go ahead and do it. Once it's done, the publishers come to them and say, oi, what did you do? You stole our information. And the AI companies be like, oh, yeah, yes, we did. Here, do you want $10 million? Do you want $20 million? Let's cut a deal. And that is what's happening with each of the publishers one at a time. This is the first time the New York Times has acquiesced to a deal like this. I imagine there will be multiple. So they will now cut a deal with OpenAI. They'll cut, well, not OpenAI because they're currently suing them, but they'll probably cut deals with the other artificial intelligence companies. With OpenAI, they're probably aiming for an even larger payout via their lawsuit. So it's this is just the economics of it. First, the AI companies steal. Then, if the person they stole from is big enough to kick up a fuss and to take them to court and to do some damage, then OpenAI will basically pay them off and set up a deal like this. Sorry, not just OpenAI, all of the AI companies. So it's a bit of a racket, but that is the economic reality of what's going on right now. Pop to this. Hey, Davey. Good morning. Just checking to see if there's any questions. Not many questions today. That is fine. No says, can you upload your lives on YouTube, please? Yes, I do. So all of the lives are available on YouTube, as well as a cleaned up version of the live as well. So the live normally goes on for an hour or so. What we do is we also tidy that up. So we put a nice highlight reel on the beginning. We get rid of all my ums and ers. and basically make it cleaner. So that goes on YouTube as well. So we have the raw live if you want to watch it, warts and all, with me stumbling over things, getting confused. We have the edited version of the live, which is just a bit tidier. And then we clip out all of the different topics. So for example, I talked for, a long time, maybe 20 minutes on open source versus closed source. That will become its own video, which will live on YouTube. And then we also clip out shorts, so 30 to 60 seconds. It's quite a production line. We are hiring a full-time editor who starts on Monday, which is exciting because otherwise it's basically me and my business partner running a media company, and we need some more help. So we're hiring. Also, so everything's on YouTube. Everything's clean on YouTube. Also, there is a daily newsletter that comes out where we take all of the information from the live from the previous day and we write it all up. We add graphics, we add links to the original articles, so acts as show notes, and we link to the time codes inside the live, so you can go there directly and find that particular topic. So there are many, many ways to access this. What you're watching right now is kind of the raw version, the 1 hour of just me talking, but there are many, many cleaner versions. YouTube's going to be the best place to find most of it, plus the free newsletter, which is in the bio as well. So hopefully that's enough, because yeah, we are basically running a media company, and it is a lot of work, but it's working. Let me check. I want to check because this has become my obsession, like my YouTube growth. So we are now at, drum roll, 2,684 subscribers. So we just hit 2,500 last week. No, sorry, at the beginning of this week. So we've added another nearly 200 in the last few days. So it's slow. It's very slow compared to TikTok and Instagram, etc., but it is speeding up. And I really like YouTube as well, because if any of you are content creators, YouTube is very hard to get started on. But when you start to have a lot of content in place, there's a long tail to it. So I have videos that I put up 4 weeks ago, which are still chugging along. Whereas on TikTok, you put up a video, boom, it's seen by however many people, 10,000 people, and then boom, it dies. There's very little long tail on it. YouTube is much more about building up a large library content. So if you are interested in YouTube, it's something I will, once I get hang of it myself, once I hit 10,000 subscribers or 100,000, I will put together a kind of a guide showing you how to do this. That will be in the newsletter. Again, that's free. There are changes happening to the newsletter, which I'll be talking about in the next couple of weeks. But the idea is to help you use AI to build businesses, grow businesses, also using content, using methods like this, like YouTube, in order to grow your business. So watch out for that in the newsletter. So hopefully that's helpful. Everything is available on YouTube. Definitely follow me on YouTube. That's really helpful for me. Mankut is saying, how do you add the word text behind you? This thing, the thing that is right behind my head, you can do that in TikTok. So anyone who's watching me on the other streams won't know what that comment is about. But on TikTok, I've got simultaneously live streaming there. You can put this behind you, and it's pretty cool. And I look mad on all of my other streams right now, because I'm ducking my head back and forward. Jack is saying, shorts are key to subscribers. I got 10,000 subs from a 2 million view short. Wow. Okay. I haven't had that yet. So I've had that happen to me on TikTok. Bizarrely, so I set myself a goal of putting out 3 videos a day on TikTok. This was about a year ago. But just talking heads, just talking to the camera, blah, 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 blah. And because I knew that I could only control the output, I couldn't control the algorithm, I couldn't control, what people wanted to watch, but I could control how much I put out. And I'm very much a believer in quality comes from quantity. So if you continue to do something, you will get better at it. So I basically put out 3 videos a day, and there was one video where you can probably find it. I think it's got 3.5 million or 4 million views on TikTok, something like that. But you can see I'm wearing my coat, and the reason is I was on the way out. I was going to the pub to go and meet my friends, and I was like, I need to shoot my last video. And I just sat down, shot this video, and left. And then my phone, a couple of hours later, had blown up, and I went back, and it had 500,000 views. Like, what the hell's going on? And then over the weekend, it just went 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, etc. And that was the video that shot me to, I think, 40,000 followers or something on TikTok. And you never know when that's going to happen. So I've talked to many other creators who are on TikTok and Instagram, and they've all said the same thing. The video that kind of propelled them and took them to that next level, they had no idea it would be that one. They were always surprised that it was that particular video, because it was generally something that was rushed, or they didn't think much of it, and then suddenly it shot off. So the only thing you can do is continue to continuously put content out. And then eventually the algorithm gods will say, oh, yes, we like your stuff. Boom, up you go. But yeah, it's a slog. It is a slog. And that's a good job. Where did you get 10K subs, Jack? Was that on TikTok or YouTube? Because YouTube for me is an utter slog, but I'm working on it. Tekaroy says, good morning. I've really got to start doing content. Yeah, content is really powerful. I think it's going to become more powerful moving forward, because it's becoming easier and easier to build using vibe coding tools. Like yesterday, I vibe coded up 2 interactive lead magnets. One that helps you work out what business you should start in the world of AI. It's quite a cool tool, actually. I'll release it in a few days. And another one that helps you work out how to start delivering your first workshops. So AI workshops, and it kind of asks you about your experience levels and how you like to teach, etc. And then guides you through and helps you work out how much money you can make. So I vibe coded these up. I created a new homepage. I created a new place to host my 80 or 90 plus playbooks. So it's about 500,000 words of content, and it was all vibe coded, and it took me 4 or 5 hours. It's something I could have done in Webflow or WordPress, or technically I could have done it by hand, although I haven't done that for years. But I was able to do it in Lovable for, I think it must have cost me $30 in credits, and it took me a few hours. So because building is becoming so easy, I think distribution is going to be the key now. So someone like Levels.io, Peter Levels over on Twitter, is an example of this. He vibe coded a little fun little flight simulator, and he did it for fun initially, but because he has an audience of millions, however many, hundreds of thousands or millions, he was able to document what he was building. And people start showing interest and say, oh, can you add, multiplayer? Can you add the ability to shoot each other down, etc.? And it just snowballed because he has an audience first and foremost. So when you have an audience, when you have distribution, anything that you do just has that leverage. It could be accelerated. And people showed an interest in his funny little project. And eventually he sold adverts on, like, you could buy sky banners and banners at the airport. And I think he made, let me find it because it's worth looking up. Levels.io flight simulator. I think he made 100,000 or so. Oh, okay. Nope, he was making $87,000 a month. Okay, he's making $1 million a year on his funny little flight simulator. Okay, here's the tweet. Let me pull it up on screen, because this is the power of having an audience. So fly.peter.com has now gone from 0 to $1 million annual recurring revenue in 17 days. Revenue update, 87,000 monthly recurring revenue. My first project ever to go up this fast. So he was selling adverts, basically. So 320,000 people have now thrown in the game. Whether the MRR, monthly recurring revenue, is truly sustainable for a year, we can only guess. Probably not. But they are subscriptions, and they do renew. So as long as the game keeps improving, maybe it will happen. And then he goes on to talk about he got hacked by UFO invaders. Okay, since I kept getting hacked by UFO invaders, I decided to sell the UFOs. And coincidentally, Basecamp wanted a UFO as the origin of 37 signals comes from the 37 radio signals detected from space to detect extraterrestrial life. I did not know that. So he got Basecamp to sponsor him based on the fact that he got some people hacking and griefing his games. So again, when you have an audience, weird things like this can happen. And this is... Sorry. And I have one new sponsor that sells Ozempic. So got the text on the blimp, are you as big as a blimp? Lose weight at the website. Sorry, getting distracted. When you have an audience, you can do things like this. This is how I launched the AI workshop kit, for example. So we have done 4 cohorts, probably about $500,000 from the AI workshop kit. And that was based on initially me tweeting and putting out a video saying, hey, I give AI workshops. I currently personally charge between $1,000 and $4,000 per hour, which is true. But I'm getting too much demand for giving AI workshops. What I'm thinking of doing is licensing out my material to people who can go and give my workshops for me, and they can go and get paid $1,000, $2,000 per hour. Would anyone be interested in this? So that was the first video that I put on TikTok. And I had about 100 people say, yeah, I'd be interested in this. That told me, it gave me the signal that there was a market for the idea. So we started to develop it from there. The next stage was putting together a wait list. So saying, hey, this is what we're building. This is what it would look like. This would be roughly the cost. Are you interested? And again, I think we had about 600 people on the wait list. Again, that's a signal saying, hey, build this. I did not build it yet. What I did was I launched the first cohort. So I got people to pay. We started it up, and I built it as we went with the first cohort. So you can de-risk your businesses by having an audience, because it allows you to ask questions and to gauge the market using your audience rather than guessing. Because if you don't have an audience, you're either spending money on adverts, or you have to partner with somebody who does have an audience, and then you split the revenue with them. Or you just kind of hope for the best, which doesn't work. And if you go to one of the AI kind of tool directories or even Product Hunt, you'll see most of the products there, they just die. They cannot exist because the creators of these products have not worked out their distribution. They have not worked out their marketing. So I believe that distribution and marketing is going to be even more important moving forward, because it's becoming so easy to build stuff. But the good news is, once you have an audience in place and you start building cool stuff, you can get it out to them like Levels did and make apparently an insane amount of money from a little flight simulator. Obviously, that is an edge case, but it's an instructive one, I think. Oh, cool. Impressive. I launched, so Tekkaroy saying, I launched Colchester.dev yesterday to find this fellow startup builders. Very cool. Lots of AI, but still need to get in front of the content. Yeah. Content helps. I would say knowing your background as well, because you are an actual coder, you have a perspective which would be very valuable for people out there, because vibe coding in particular is extremely overhyped. But as you come from an actual background where you can create this stuff, I think you can give a more balanced opinion, while also showing people how they can use these tools, how they can get into coding, which I think is really exciting. The fact that normal people don't need to now spend years studying Python and SQL, etc. They can now just build something and get ideas out of their head. Yes, later on, they're going to have to work out a little bit of coding. They're going to have to learn, about libraries and dependencies and, what's this GitHub thing? They'll have to work all of that out, but this gives them a nice, easy way into that world where they are immediately creating something that looks cool, something that's valuable, something they can show to their friends and family and be like, hey, I made this. I think that's super, super exciting, personally. I think that would be a nice way for you to create content, but also backed by your actual experience as a coder. So it's not just pure hype, because there's an awful lot of that as well with vibe coding about, you'll be able to build this application and make millions overnight. No. Cool. So that is us at about an hour. So I'm going to finish up. I will be back on Monday because I don't do the show at the weekend. And hopefully next week we will have GPT-5, he says, sighing, because I know I'm going to be very busy once GPT-5 comes out. I am off to Sweden. So I think I maybe talked about this before. There was Lovable, which I really like. Lovable is a vibe coding tool. They had a kind of it wasn't an accelerator. They kept saying it's not an accelerator, it's something else. They had something called Lovable Shipped, which was a 6-week, not an accelerator, where you would join Lovable and you'd go through 6 weeks of teaching and guided exercises. And at the end, you'd build something, and at the end, they'd have a competition. That's finishing up in a week or so. At the beginning of that competition, there was the ability for people to share their buddy codes with other people, and whoever shared the most buddy codes would win a trip to San Francisco to go and meet the team. I won that competition. I did not mean to. I did not know it was a competition, but I shot a quick video about it, giving out my buddy code, because one person asked me. I gave him the buddy code, and then I realized that, oh, maybe other people need this. So I stuck up a video, and hundreds of people used it apparently and joined Lovable Shipped. So I got a message saying, hey, you've won a trip to San Francisco. So, oh, that's cool. That's no longer happening. There's been a shake-up. I won't go into the details, but they are now flying me out to Sweden, to the Lovable headquarters at Stockholm, which I'm really, really excited about. So when I'm over there, I may not be doing the lives, or I might be doing the lives from Lovable HQ, which would be kind of cool. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. That sounds fun. But there might be a bit of disruption. That's going to be at the end of August, though. So I'll be here next week and for the next few weeks for hopefully the GPT-5 release and beyond. Thank you, everybody, and have a lovely weekend. Remember, all of the clips, all of the clean video and everything is available on YouTube, and there is a newsletter that you can sign up to absolutely free. It's going to be linked in the bio, which gives you a daily rundown of what I've been talking about. I won't call it a rundown because that is another newsletter. It's a really good newsletter and you should subscribe. Mine is just a daily update based on what I've been talking about in the live. Okay, I've been talking for the last hour, and I'm going to go and sit quietly with my vibe coding tools now instead. And have a lovely weekend, everybody. Thank you.